What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 42 of my reviewing and ranking the Grateful Dead's archival concert release series, Dave's Picks. I'm on number 42. I'm going to review this, and then I'll show where it ranks among the other 41 I've already done. And just sort of as a spoiler alert, a trigger warning, a sort of disclaimer, out of the other 41, the one that is currently ranked at number 1 is Volume 13, which is a show from February 24th, 1974, which if you look right down there, you will notice that this show is from February 23rd, 1974. It is the day before. I love February shows. No, I don't love February shows. I love 1974 shows. I think the Dead sound, that is the best sound that they have. One drummer, Bill. I think Keith is at his best. Some of the piano work from Keith, especially even on this release, is fantastic. Yeah, I'm just giving you that spoiler because I was super excited when this was announced as like number 42 is the release that was going to drop. I think this was the maybe the second one of that year of 2022 last year. Super excited when this dropped. 42 would have been the second one. Yeah, just absolutely fantastic. I was super excited, so I was loving it even before I listened to it. And sure enough, it delivered everything I wanted out of a Grateful Dead release. It also has a bonus disc, which is material from the 22nd. And these are the first 3 shows the band played in 74. So there's this sort of, hey, we're back. Let's explore, let's play, let's have a good time type energy. Plus, there's a handful of new songs. So anyways, it is a fantastic release. The first set fits all on disc 1. Opens up with a really good Around and Around. Bob's bringing the high energy. It's almost like this declarative type statement, like we're here, we're ready to rock. Because in the next 3 songs, they really kind of bring it down a little bit. To kind of maybe find their groove, and it kind of works. Reminds me of Pearl Jam. They have a history of like starting shows with like slow songs, and there's this, I think it's Verona, but there's an Italy show from like early 2000, which they start with 6 slow songs in a row, and it just, that when they finally like erupt, it's going to be an eruption. This isn't quite that magnificent of an eruption, but having that opening of Around and Around and then kind of bringing it back down with the Dire Wolf, which I don't normally like, but this is a pretty slow version of it. Kind of feels just like the tempo's a little dragging, but I don't know, it kind of works for me. Me and Bobby McGee, which sounds perfect. Everybody's doing a fantastic job on this. Good place to put it, I think, early in the first set. Then we get a Sugary, which is pretty much just straight storytelling with some short solos. We're not to, it's like 7.5 minutes now. We'd be at 15 in 3 years, but it's still a nice song to hear. Then we get a Mexicali Blues, and then we get, without a doubt, the highlight of the set, one of the highlights of the show. We get Here Comes Sunshine, the last Here Comes Sunshine that would be played until they brought it back in 92. I saw those first 3 that they brought back in 92, Compton Terrace, Arizona, 2 in Oakland. Did not like any of them. That was one of the reasons I sort of got frustrated and stopped seeing the Dead as much as I did at that point in time, because bringing back songs like this and letting Vince do that, playing that intro, didn't like it. But this Here Comes Sunshine is magnificent. It is a celebration of the sunshine and not a mourning of the flood. The flood is gone. We are celebrating. This is almost like a musical ballet. That sort of main jam with its 2 parts. That first part, Jerry's just bringing it, and we feel like we're going to wrap things up, and then we're off, and just like what just feels like a ballet. Like this band at this point are all over the map, but they're not stepping on each other's toes. It really feels like, hey, Phil's doing this thing and Bob's doing this, but they somehow manage never to run into each other. And the Here Comes Sunshine, just that middle main jam and then the jam at the end are just so euphoric and uplifting and magnificent. And it just sounds effortless. And to think that they stopped playing this song after this, like why? I mean, a fantastic, hey, we're done with this song, let's not play it for what? Almost 2 decades. Great send-off, but why? It is magnificent. highlight of the release. One of the highlights of the release. Then we get a Biddy Dun down the line, a Ship of Fools, only the second ever played. First ever played would be on the bonus disc. Get a Jack Straw. We get a really good high energy deal into Promised Land. Kind of feels like the set could have closed right here. It's a short little high energy Promised Land, but then they go into Bertha, and Bertha just kind of feels like it's riding the momentum of the Promised Land. Maybe just kind of like, maybe they did play one song too long and they should have ended at Promise, but then we close out with the greatest story ever told, and the energy kind of comes back and we end up more of a like, yeah, really good, solid ending. Solid first set. Great songs, but that Here Comes Sunshine in the middle is just a must-hear Sunshine. Set 2 opens up on disc 2, opens up with a Road Jimmy, which I'm always hit and miss on these slow song set 2 intros. But this one works. It almost feels like a prologue or a prelude because, you know, we're not getting too high energy. We're kind of keeping things at a pretty steady pace. Kind of gets, you know, a little bit jammy and fun and flirty. It's kind of a long Road Jimmy. The band's feeling it. But it really does feel like an appetizer because what follows next is Weather Report Suite. And it is just a perfectly executed, all parts of this work. The prelude is beautiful. When the slide guitar comes in for part 1, it's beautiful. The Let It Grow is just the perfect sort of, not too fast, not too slow, just the perfect energy. And that ending jam, it's just like they're on like autopilot and just soaring. It's got all these different flavors in it. It gets chill, it gets aggressive, it gets jazzy, it gets over here, it gets over here. It's just like, you can tell the band is excited to be back on the road and playing live shows. And this Let It Grow is just 19 minutes of just perfection. It is just, and to have it as like the second song as the second set, and you're just taking off on this like sort of epic jam after the Let It Grow vocals, just absolutely fantastic. Phil sounds fantastic. Jerry, I mean, every part of the band is just, they are working together so well. And somehow there seems like they're flowing and a lot's going on, but they never get in each other's way. And it works perfectly. That eases incredibly well into a Stella Blue. The Stella Blue doesn't quite have the optimism. It has sort of there's just kind of a little bit of a darkness to it. Really nice ending to the Stella Blue. Kind of has this Dire Straits feel that's really cool. Then we get a bunch of songs and we just get some pretty solid performances of. We get a Big River, a Rambled on Rose, a Me and My Uncle. Then at this point, in order to make it fit on 3 discs, we get the second part of the encore. We get a Johnny Be Good into a really nice And We Bid You Goodnight. And then disc 3 continues the rest of the second set, opens up with a pretty solid He's Gone, pretty normal He's Gone for 74. But then when we get toward that end jam, Jerry does that really nice, that cascading, like thing where it feels like the band's like just this waterfall or this like wheel of music that's just like spinning and dropping notes all over the place. And we get that sort of cascading post vocal He's Gone jam that eventually leads us right into a Truckin'. It's a pretty solid Truckin', nice jam at the end of Truckin'. That goes into drums, and then that drops us into what I think is rivals the Here Comes Sunshine as the highlight of the show. We get a 21-minute, the other one, that takes about 16, 17 minutes before we actually arrive at the other one. We get a Phil bomb to start off, but then we don't go off into other one. We're not we're not jamming that. We're going off into like kind of revisiting territory we were playing with in Let It Grow. It's more of a playing in the band type exploration. It's just jazzy and kind of all over the place and psych exploratory. It doesn't have that sort of sinister underlying that the other one has. So in a way, it's like just an excuse to jam, just an excuse to improvise. Hey, drop that bass run, Phil, and then we'll just solo some more. It'll give us a reason to take off. After they like jam it out for quite a while, they go into like a pure space moment. Bill stops playing. There's a couple moments over the next like 4 or 5 minutes where maybe he does like a hi-hat or a cymbal, but he's pretty much non-existent. It's kind of like their space. But it's a really melodic space and a really gentle space and kind of a delicate space. And And then after it goes on long enough, you can tell Phil's like, let's jam. And Phil just starts dropping these bass bombs, just noise. And then the whole space thing starts getting a little more feedbacky and chaotic. And we finally build our way back into a jam, but it's definitely not the other one jam yet. And then after we've been doing this about 15 minutes, the whole thing in total, we start to get a little dun 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 dun. And it's still not too sinister and still kind of uplifting and happy. But then eventually, like right towards the end of the song, we get the first verse. As soon as the first verse is done, we drop down to like almost like a non-existent jam, and Jerry starts the Eyes of the World, and we're off into Eyes of the World. And this Eyes of the World, probably not the best Eyes of the World. I don't think Jerry's pushing the solos as hard. The ending jam, while it has incredible moments, is not as ferocious as some others, but it sounds perfect. It is like Here Comes Sunshine was them really exploring like this ballet of like just jazzy improv. The other one is them just like straightforward, more psych, more exploratory, more playing in the band type stuff. And then this is just like, let's set up a groove and let Jerry play. Let's just do that. And everybody's going to have a good time. And Keith's got some good fills, and Bob's rhythm is awesome. And Phil's, of course, he's going to get his chance to solo after the final chorus before we go into like the Stranger Than Dirt-esque jam at the end. Everybody's going to get a chance to shine. It's just, it is the Eyes of the World that like, it just feels like the best dessert ever. Like the encores might be the dessert. And so this is like, I don't know, this is just a final course that is comfort food. It's like a really good soup to close it out or something. It's just not a soup to open. It's like a warm soup to close it out. Just an absolutely, just exactly what this show needed at this point. We get a One More Saturday Night to close out the main set. And then the first encore, which is on disc 3, is Casey Jones, which is a song I've always been about. It starts off a little but when we get to the driving that train, there's the chugga 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 at the end, and the steamrolling nature of a runaway train takes over. It works, and it almost like we needed that second encore after this because the Casey Jones left us wanting more. Fantastic show. Here Comes Sunshine, Weather Report Suite, other one, I would say are all must hears, and everything in between those just help serve those songs up. This is going to be a top 10 show, but then we get the bonus disc. Bunch of stuff from the first show of the tour, of this part of the tour, February 22nd, the day before. Shows from both the first set and the second set. They're in the order they were played, though there were songs skipped. We get a U.S. Blues, first ever U.S. Blues, opens up the set, opens up the show, opens up the disc. We get a Brown Eyed Women, which sounds beautiful. We get a Must Have Been the Roses. I think this is the first ever Roses. It's a little bit fast. It has an urgency to it that I don't necessarily associate with a Roses. I think at one point Jerry's like, it must have been the Roses. You're like, whoa, hold back a little, Jerry. We get a Black-Throated Wind. We get a really nice Loose Lucy that's just in that perfect sort of mid-tempo swaying. Jerry's really into this. Fun song. We get the first ever Ship of Fools. Oh, but that's after we get another absolute highlight of this release. Maybe one of my favorite versions of this song. We get a Playing in the Band. That is, yeah, this is their first show after they took a little break. They're back. And this Playing in the Band is like, as soon as we get that jam territory, it's like, we're off. Let's go. Let's jam. And then almost like a minute in, it's like, but wait a minute. What are we doing? Where are we going? Like we're kind of lost, and Jerry's maybe looking around, and Jerry's like, oh, forget this. I'm just going to take off. And he just takes off. And Jerry's just aggressive. And the band's just like, all right, we're going to do our thing and follow you. It's very exploratory, at times chaotic. Jerry keeps dropping in these hardcore Slipknot jams where he's playing that written part from Slipknot. At one point this is like, what, a 21-minute playing? Maybe around the 10-minute mark or so, maybe a little further in, like almost everybody drops out, and Jerry is just playing the Slipknot notes with almost like Fripp a la like a Fracture. It's just like he is just going off, but he's like doing it around Slipknot, and then finally goes off and does other things. But this is just, a 21-minute play-in in which you just get the band exploring all these ideas and pushing the envelope and going different places and throwing in teases. And Jerry's pretty aggressive almost the entire time. It's just, yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. And by the time, like towards the end, like what, 17, 18-minute mark, when you realize we're going back into the playing band, the actual reprise part, it is not forced. Just kind of we smoothly like ease into it. It's just like we're like there's like a parade or something, and we've gone off on this detour, and we're just like, oh, we're just going to rejoin you and then finish up where you finish off. Nobody's going to even notice that we were gone. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's another highlight of this release. Then we get that Ship of Fools, the first ever. Starts off a little different than it would normally would. Starts off with some chords. Feels a little bit different. Doesn't quite have that sort of majesty that it eventually would. Fantastic China writer. We could possibly have every single China writer from 73, 74 release with that Feeling Groovy jam in the middle. So fluid. Just the flights of fancy that they take in that China jam. Segue into writer is always good. Everything about this just is like the band at their just most jazzy improv best. And then we get a really solid Uncle John's band, which I think was the encore of this first show, the 22nd. Really nice. That end jam that they have has a nice psych energy to it. It's definitely not an uplifting, like Uncle John's band I always feel like has this uplifting vibe about it. This one's a little psycher and darker. A nice way to close out this release. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, 74, my favorite year. And this is all really, really fantastic stuff from 74. Yeah, I love it. I listen to it a lot. Every disc has at least one bona fide must-hear moment. Here Comes Sunshine on the first disc. Let It Grow, whole Weather Report suite on the second. The whole Other One Eyes on the third, and that playing on the fourth. Everything, I think, has a must-hear something on here. Where would I rank this? It's all the way up at number 4 right now. I do think that 24th show is a little better with that Dark Star 2, but yeah, this is up there in the top 10. This is absolutely a fantastic release. Absolutely love it. But yeah. Anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this show, what you think of the Dead, all that stuff. You know how this stuff works, people. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and go listen to Here Comes Sunshine on here. It is just absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.